Welcome to our countdown of the top 10 worst movies to cross the billion-dollar mark at the box office. While these films achieved massive financial success, their reception from critics and audiences tells a very different story. Whether it's due to poor storytelling, disappointing performances, or missed opportunities, these blockbusters left many viewers scratching their heads. Join us as we dive into the most baffling billion-dollar hits that, despite their financial triumph, didn't quite live up to the hype. So, the 10th worst billion-dollar movie on our list is The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy was a massive success, earning nearly $3 billion and 17 Academy Awards. It was inevitable that audiences would eventually return to Middle-earth. The first Hobbit film's impressive billion-dollar box office showed there was still plenty of love for the franchise. However, stretching a relatively short novel into 3 movies quickly proved to be a flawed decision. While the cast of familiar and new characters remained largely endearing, the film's sense of adventure was bogged down by excessive exposition and an over-reliance on CGI for certain creatures. Though the action picked up in later installments, the declining box office returns suggested that An Unexpected Journey didn't leave the strongest first impression. And the 9th worst billion-dollar movie on our list is The Fate of the Furious. There's nothing wrong with giving audiences exactly what they want, but The Fate of the Furious marks the point where Dom Toretto's speeches about family started to lose their impact. As the 8th entry in the Fast and Furious saga, the film delivers the over-the-top action and high-energy spectacle fans expect. However, as the first installment released after Paul Walker's passing, it struggles to establish its own identity. Furious 7 honored Walker with a heartfelt tribute, but without Brian O'Connor as the franchise's grounding force, the series' tonal inconsistencies and implausibilities stand out more than ever. Instead of earning its place on its own strengths, Fate leans heavily on the goodwill built by its predecessors. And on number 8, we have Minions. Whether you love them or can't stand them, the Minions were a cultural phenomenon in the early 2010s. However, they also prove that even a good thing can be overdone. Their slapstick humor made them a lovable part of the first 2 Despicable Me films, but they shine brightest when paired with a villain to serve. This origin story, following their quest through history to find the perfect master, is a light-hearted and occasionally charming adventure. Yet the humor feels less fresh, and their nonsensical chatter quickly grows tiresome, even for the most patient viewers. Still, when the target audience is kids and their ticket-buying parents, sometimes keeping it simple is enough. And the 7th worst billion-dollar movie is Aladdin. Like many of Disney's live-action remakes, Aladdin soars on nostalgia at its best, but stumbles badly at its worst. While it deserves credit for attempting to put a fresh spin on a beloved classic, the changes it makes end up stripping away much of the magic that made the original so special. Even with an energetic Will Smith and timeless music at its disposal, the film never truly escapes the long shadow of its animated predecessor. It's disappointing to see a movie with so much potential settle for mediocrity instead of carving out its own place in our hearts. But as the saying goes, phenomenal cosmic power, itty-bitty living space. And the 6th worst billion-dollar movie on our list is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Star Wars will always draw a crowd, but it's hard to pinpoint who's most to blame for bringing the saga to such a disappointing low. No matter where you land on The Last Jedi and its divisive choices, The Rise of Skywalker did little to repair its predecessor's reputation. Rather than concluding the story or catering to fan expectations, Episode 9 somehow managed to do neither. Key plotlines were erased, characters we were just beginning to connect with were sidelined, and the franchise needlessly revived its biggest villain. In a misguided attempt to restore credibility, the film instead delivered one of the most unsatisfying finales in recent memory. And on number 5 we have The Lion King. It's no shock that goodwill toward The Lion King helped this live-action remake rake in an astonishing $1.6 billion. However, that figure should be viewed with caution. It likely reflects how many people showed up out of curiosity rather than how many felt compelled to revisit it. Stripped of nostalgia, this version has little to offer on the first watch, let alone repeated viewings. A near shot-for-shot remake, its lack of originality is only made worse by its obsession with realism. While visually impressive, the lifeless performances and CGI-rendered animals drain it of the heart and emotion that made the original a timeless masterpiece. Simply put, this one doesn't make us feel the love. And on number 4 we have Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides. Given that this was once the most expensive film ever made, Disney executives must have breathed a sigh of relief when it crossed the billion-dollar mark. But despite its financial success, this unnecessary Pirates of the Caribbean sequel hasn't exactly invited repeat viewings. On Stranger Tides had a promising setup. Captain Jack Sparrow facing off against Blackbeard in a race for the Fountain of Youth sounds like the perfect swashbuckling adventure. However, while Jack and Hector Barbossa's return was welcome, they were let down by a convoluted plot and forgettable new characters. What should have been a straightforward high seas quest was instead bogged down by weak humour, underwhelming action, and enough unnecessary subplots to sink a ship. And the third worst billion-dollar movie on our list is Alice in Wonderland. It was the wrong movie released at exactly the right moment. Alice in Wonderland arrived just when audiences were eager for another immersive 3D spectacle in the wake of Avatar. It also helped introduce the idea of reimagining Disney classics in live action as something fresh and exciting. However, despite its massive box office success, its biggest draws ultimately proved to be fleeting gimmicks. While Tim Burton's signature visual style suited the film, the overwhelming focus on aesthetics left the story struggling to keep pace. Worse still, it fundamentally misunderstood Lewis Carroll's original work, sidelining its quirky characters in favour of a misguided war narrative. In the end, it's clear that Disney didn't take many lessons from this experiment. And on number 2, we have Transformers: Age of Extinction. Looking back, it was inevitable that Michael Bay would keep pushing the limits of Transformers fans' patience as long as his films kept raking in cash. 2011's Dark of the Moon should have been enough proof that even a billion-dollar haul couldn't excuse irritating characters and chaotic action. Yet somehow, Age of Extinction managed to drag the franchise to new lows just 3 years later. Amplifying every flaw from its predecessors, it delivers a plot more convoluted than the first 3 movies combined while replacing its human cast with even less compelling characters. Worst of all, Bay directs the film with a lifeless certainty that box office success is inevitable, making all the wrong creative choices simply because he can. And the last worst billion-dollar movie on our list is Jurassic World: Dominion. To borrow a line from Ian Malcolm, the creators of the Jurassic World series were so focused on whether they could revive the franchise that they never considered if they should. While the film boasts cutting-edge CGI, Universal's overestimation of the saga's storytelling potential reached its peak with this 6th, and unfortunately not final, installment. Dominion already disappoints by failing to create real chemistry between its legacy characters and new faces. But by centering the plot around a locust plague, it commits the ultimate sin, rendering the dinosaurs almost irrelevant. Add in action scenes that feel like they belong in an entirely different franchise, and Dominion ironically becomes exactly the kind of profit-driven spectacle that Spielberg's original warned against. Was there a movie you were shocked to see cross the billion-dollar mark? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe this channel for more videos like this.